came to bring fire on the earth, and how I wish it were already kindled. So I have a baptism with me with which to be baptized, and what stress I am under until it is completed. Do you think that I have come to bring peace on the earth? No, I tell you, but rather division. From now on, 5 in one household will be divided, 3 against 2 and 2 against 3. They will be divided, father against son, and son against father, mother against daughter, and daughter against mother, mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. He also said to the crowds, when you see a cloud rising in the west, you immediately say, it's going to rain, and so it happens. And when you see the south wind blowing, you say, there will be a scorching heat, and it happens. You hypocrites, you know how to interpret the appearance of earth and sky, but why do you not know how to interpret the present time? Okay, Jenny, that's a pretty jagged and challenging text.
Yes,
that
I think
makes us feel a bit uncomfortable. How does it strike you?
Yes, it's certainly not gentle Jesus, meek and mild. I mean, that must be one of Jesus' most fiery sort of statements. And, you know, we have this idea of Jesus coming to bring peace and reconciliation, the Prince of Peace. And yet here, you know, this is just such a contrast. Yeah, even the mothers-in-law get it in the neck.
Yes, they do. What this makes me think of is the Springbok Tour. I don't know if you were in New Zealand at the time of the Springbok Tour, but people in families came to blows over whether there should be a racially inspired team in New Zealand or not. Do you remember that?
Oh, I do, yes. I was in a student flat in Christchurch, and we certainly didn't all agree, and I can remember some very fiery sort of dinner table discussions, and I remember ending up in the square and someone shoving a sort of Christians Against the Tour flag into my hand, and I thought, you know. But you were telling me yesterday about your own family's relationship with that whole nuclear thing.
Yes, my father was the director of Aldermaston, which is where they manufacture the nuclear weapons in Britain. And we used to have tremendous family discussions about this. And my friends were coming down from Oxford in protest to Aldermaston, and my sister was very fierily against nuclear weapons. And the discussion got so hot one evening at table that my father picked up a serving spoon and banged her on the head with it and said, "Shut up!"
But I mean, I wonder, you know, when we think back to those days, and you know, people really were willing to go out on a limb, and I wonder, you know, what's Jesus getting at here? I mean, why is he, you know, what's happening that's making him so intense about all this?
I think in the context, he's on his journey to Jerusalem, and this is why he says he's under stress, where he takes upon himself to challenge the powers that be, whether they were religious or secular, who were doing things which were screwing up the peasant population of Galilee, where he came from, and making it impossible for them to function as communities.
Yes. And he's really coming across as a sort of a social activist, revolutionary, really.
Well, he's saying that the kingdom of God has consequences. It's not just talk, it has to happen on the ground. And the ground for him meant little villages in Galilee. But there was also a big place like Jerusalem where all the key decisions were taken.
Yes.
You know, a bit like Wellington.
So he's heading for Wellington, really. Yes, and the cross set up in Parliament grounds. But I wonder today, I mean, you know, we often think about our own society, would we get that fired up as Jesus did then? What would it take nowadays? You know, the Springbok Tour, we look back to those days, that was 1980, so, you know, there's been nothing much since, has it, that really gets us fired up?
Well, there is and there isn't. It is, I think, as Jesus hints in this passage, it just depends how awake you are. There was a study published by some Australian academics in the last few weeks which said if the world goes on heating up at the rate that it is now, in 300 years it will be uninhabitable. Now, do we wake up and take notice and start modifying our behaviour so that all this carbon is not collecting in the atmosphere and heating up the planet?
And it's really where the rubber hits the road, isn't it, in terms of actually saying, well, concrete action am I going to take? I mean, Jesus he's going to walk, he's going to keep on walking to Jerusalem.
Keep on walking to Jerusalem, and just recently in the news there's all this question about how much alcohol it's legal to drink before you get in a car, with the question of, do we go on killing people and maiming people because there are no proper limits on alcohol consumption?
So Jesus is really challenging us here, isn't he, to actually be willing to walk the talk.
Walk the talk and see that there are issues of life and death all around us.
Yeah, indeed. Perhaps a good place to stop. Yeah.